So in the Philosopher's Stone, Hermione spends a good chunk of the book not really being friends with Harry and Ron, right? Ron, in particular, finds her pretty irritating. There's even a part where he turns to Harry and he says,
"She's a nightmare, honestly. No wonder she hasn't got any friends."
Now, that all changes after they bond over almost being brutally murdered by a fully grown mountain troll while they're in the girls' bathroom. Somewhere Harry and Ron spend far more time than they should through the series, frankly. But something the films didn't really hammer home as much as the books do is that Hermione still kinda irritates Harry and Ron, particularly in the earlier books. Like, they're best friends, but she still nags them to study. She tells on Harry and gets his firebolt confiscated. There are lots of instances where she irritates her best friends, right? And with them being so different, but also such good friends, they end up kind of molding each other as characters. Hermione often meets Ron and Harry in the middle somewhere. Like, she's more willing to break rules because of their friendship. From stealing from Snape in the Chamber of Secrets to starting an illegal defense club in the Order of the Phoenix. And in turn, Harry and Ron also kind of meet Hermione halfway, which we see when Ron says about saving the house elves during the Battle of Hogwarts. And the way that their friendship develops how all of them are, who they all become, it got me thinking, what if Hermione never became friends with Ron and Harry? What if something changed that night that they almost got killed by a troll and so they never bonded? How would it change the characters who no longer mold each other in certain directions? And how would it change the Harry Potter series as a whole? So as I mentioned, in the Philosopher's Stone, Harry and Ron find Hermione quite irritating, right? She nags them to study and to follow rules and to prioritize work over having fun. She irritates Harry a bit, but she really irritates Ron. In the original story, Harry and Ron find Hermione crying in the girls' bathroom on Halloween after Ron makes that brutal comment that no one can stand her, she's a nightmare. It's harsh from Ron, right? Really harsh. And Hermione overhearing it, she's devastated. So much so that she hides away, she misses the Halloween feast, and then the troll gets in. Harry and Ron realize that she doesn't know the troll has gotten in, and they rush off to save her. The three of them fight the troll together, they bond over their near-death experience, and boom, the trio is born, right? But what if Harry and Ron just didn't go after her? What if Harry and Ron, being 11-year-old boys, just shrugged it off and went to the feast? You know, she ran off somewhere, that's not their problem. So Hermione is in the bathroom when the troll finds her, and by herself, she has got no chance. She's a first year who's only been at Hogwarts for a couple of months. She's surprised because nobody has warned her that there's a troll on the loose, and she knows the theory around magic, sure, but fighting a 12-foot mountain troll, that is not happening. Now, I don't think Hermione dies here. The teachers eventually show up, right? They would save her. McGonagall, Snape, Quirrell, whoever gets there first. So, you know, she's injured, probably quite seriously, but she survives. And here's the crucial bit. The lesson Hermione takes from this experience is completely different from the lesson she learns in the original. Because in the books, at this point, she lies to protect Harry and Ron. They've saved her life, so she takes the blame. She learns that sometimes breaking rules and being loyal to your friends is more important than following every regulation. But in this version, she was supposed to be at the feast. She was breaking the rules by running off to cry in the bathroom, and because she didn't do what she was supposed to do, she nearly died. The lesson she learns is that following rules and doing what you're told is good. The system works. Faith in authority is important. In fact, it's authority figures, the teachers, who came and saved her from a situation that could have killed her, and she was only in it because she broke the rules. And this sets up her entire character trajectory, right, for the rest of the series. It's the complete opposite of who she becomes in the original books. Rather than learning that breaking rules is okay in certain circumstances, she doubles down on following them. Meanwhile, Harry and Ron are running around Hogwarts, losing house points left, right, and center, with the whole Norbert debacle, sneaking out of bed at night, trying to have a duel with Draco in the trophy room. Generally, being reckless 11-year-olds, right, with no Hermione to keep them in check. And Hermione, she's gonna be rolling her eyes, getting increasingly annoyed at the position they're putting Gryffindor in. You know how in the original, Neville stands up to them and tries to stop them from going out at night, and then Hermione has to use Petrificus Totalis on him? Well, in this version, I think Hermione is taking that role on herself. She's the one telling them they're being idiots, they're losing house points, they're going to get Gryffindor in trouble. Now, when Harry and Ron accidentally stumble across Fluffy, things get interesting, right? Because in the books, Hermione is the one who notices the three-headed dog is standing on a trapdoor. She's the one who realizes that it's guarding something. So without her, Harry and Ron just see a terrifying dog and they leg it. They don't even notice what's underneath. So they've got no clue that Fluffy is guarding anything at all. So their investigation that leads them to the Philosopher's Stone starts much later. But it does start, because eventually Harry will still overhear bits of conversation between Quirrell and Snape. He still suspects that something's going on, and he and Ron eventually piece together that someone is trying to steal something, and being the reckless, nosy Gryffindors they are, they decide to go and try and stop it themselves. And this is where Hermione's new character really shows itself, right? Because I said that she probably takes Neville's role trying to stop them. But the thing is, unlike Neville, Harry and Ron can't just Petrificus Totalis her and move on, because she's better at magic than them at this point. You know, she's the one who had to teach Ron Wingardium Leviosa, he couldn't do it. I don't think Harry casts a single spell through the whole book, so he's definitely not an accomplished magician. So if they can't battle her, if they can't Petrificus Totalis her and get her out the way, they probably don't turn to magic and it erupts into this big argument. You know, Ron, who's already said some horrible things about her once this year, probably takes it too far again and makes her cry. And Hermione, upset and angry, probably says something like, "Fine, get yourselves killed. Or worse, expelled." Very much showing her priorities there. And she storms off. Consequences be damned, if they want to be stupid and get themselves killed, they can be. But here's the thing about Hermione, even when she's not friends with them, she's still a good person. She still has somewhat of a moral compass, even if it is pointing more towards authority than to loyalty. So after they go, she runs to McGonagall. She tells the teacher what Harry and Ron are planning to do, which means when inevitably Harry and Ron are out of their depth down the trapdoor, help is coming. But just not quite quickly enough. Because Harry and Ron get through the trapdoor, right? They walk in, Fluffy is already sleeping. They go through the trapdoor, they land in the Devil's Snare, and without Hermione, they have no idea what it is or how to escape it. Because in the original, Hermione recognizes it, and she knows that staying calm, or if that fails, that fire, will make the Devil's Snare let people go. Harry and Ron are panicking, it doesn't let them go, and she saves them with the fire. But here, they are just two 11-year-old boys being strangled by a plant. And they have no idea what to do. The Devil's Snare is genuinely going to kill them when McGonagall or Dumbledore, whoever got there first after Hermione raised the alarm, arrives to save them. The teacher is the one that stops Quirrell from getting the stone, but there's no heroic moment for Harry in front of the Mirror of Erised, something that's going to be very important later on. The stone is safe, but not because of anything Harry did. All he did was nearly get himself killed with his best mate, for nothing. And the consequences? There's no heroic end-of-year feast. Gryffindor doesn't win the House Cup. They finish dead last in house points after all of Harry and Ron's rule-breaking through the year. And the trio never forms. Hermione remains distant from them. Harry and Ron think she's a snitch who got them in trouble. Hermione thinks they're reckless idiots who almost got themselves killed. And that sets the tone for the next 6 years. So summer arrives, and Hermione remains distant from Harry and Ron, right? She doesn't join them in Diagon Alley, she's off doing her own thing, probably getting her school books early and then just reading ahead of the school year, because that's who Hermione is. So when term starts, there's a new dynamic at play, right? Gilderoy Lockhart. Because Hermione absolutely loves him. She is starry-eyed over this famous author, this accomplished wizard who has done all these incredible things, and she hangs on his every word in class. Harry and Ron, meanwhile, think he is a complete fraud. They can see right through him, the preening, the incompetence, barely disguised by a flashy smile and nice hair. So once again, Hermione's on the opposite side from Harry and Ron. She thinks they're being disrespectful to a talented professor. They think she's being taken in by an obvious charlatan. And then the Chamber of Secrets opens, and students start getting petrified. Messages appear on the wall, written in blood. And in the original story, Hermione is the one who suggests brewing Polyjuice Potion to infiltrate Slytherin's common room, to question Draco and find out if he knows anything. And it's this incredibly complex potion that takes a month to brew, and she does pretty much all of the work. So without Hermione, that never happens. Because Harry and Ron can't brew a potion, and Hermione trusts that the authority figures, the teachers, the ministry, they're going to solve it. She doesn't need to stick a nose in. She's certainly not going to be stealing potion ingredients from Professor Snape. So Harry and Ron spend the entire year thinking that it's Draco. They are convinced he's the heir of Slytherin, but they've got no way to investigate that properly. They can't prove anything. They're just stuck with their suspicions. Meanwhile, Hermione's faith is in the system once more. She believes the school, the ministry, they will get to the bottom of it. But because she's curious, she's still investigating, but on her own. She's probably working out what the monster is. She's clever enough to figure out it's a basilisk from the clues. And then she gets petrified. She's found in the library corridor, stiff as a board, with a mirror in her hand. And clutched in her other hand is a piece of paper with the information about basilisks and the single word that she scrawled, pipes. But Harry and Ron never get that information from her. Because in the original, they find that paper in her petrified hand because they're visiting her in the hospital wing as concerned friends. It's a crucial clue that helps them work out what's happening, how the basilisk is moving around the school. But in this version, they're not friends with her. They're not going to go and check in on her in the hospital wing, and they will never see that piece of paper. So the clue doesn't find its way to Harry and Ron. Nobody can connect the dots. Harry knows he can hear a voice in the walls that nobody else can hear. He knows students are being petrified, but without Hermione's research, without the crucial link about the pipes, he can't actually work out what's happening. And the attacks continue. More students are getting petrified. Dumbledore is removed, Hagrid is taken to Azkaban, and the final message appears: her skeleton will lie in the chamber forever. Ginny Weasley has been taken. In the original story, Harry finds the piece of paper in Hermione's hand, works out it's a basilisk in the pipes, and he and Ron figure out the entrance to the chamber is in Moaning Myrtle's bathroom. So they go into the chamber with Gilderoy Lockhart, Harry defeats the basilisk, and he saves Ginny. But here, without getting that clue from Hermione, they don't work it out in time. The teachers are frantically searching, but the castle is massive. The chamber has been hidden for 1,000 years, and time is running out. Eventually, the Mandrake draft will be ready, and the petrified students will be revived, and being Hermione, who has complete faith in the system and in authority, she immediately tells McGonagall what she found about the basilisk and the pipes. But by the time McGonagall takes that clue and pieces everything together, it's too late. Ginny Weasley is dead. The teachers eventually make it into the chamber. Dumbledore returns and probably defeats the basilisk. He's powerful enough to manage it, even if it is a dangerous, deadly creature. And he's able to destroy the diary and reverse the return of the memory of Tom Riddle. But it doesn't save Ginny, who's been dead in the chamber for days now. So third year begins, and the ripple effect of Hermione not being friends with Harry and Ron start to compound in unexpected ways, right? First off, Crookshanks, the ginger menace of a cat that causes so much tension between Ron and Hermione in the original story. Hermione only got Crookshanks because she goes into the magical menagerie in Diagon Alley with Ron, because Scabbers is not doing very well. Crookshanks takes a liking to her, and she buys him. But in this version, Hermione's not meeting up with Harry and Ron over the summer. She's not in the pet shop at the same time as Ron, so she never encounters Crookshanks, and she never buys him. Which has massive implications for what happens next, right? Because, see, Crookshanks isn't just a cat, he's part Kneazle, which means he's intelligent enough to recognize that Scabbers isn't actually a rat. In the original story, Crookshanks helps Sirius by trying to catch Scabbers, and by stealing the passwords from Gryffindor Tower, so that Sirius can get in. Without Crookshanks, Sirius has no help. He can't get the passwords, he can't get into the castle, and his whole plan to catch Peter Pettigrew and kill him falls apart before it even starts. Then there's Hagrid and Buckbeak, right? In the original version of the stories, Hermione is close to Hagrid only because Harry invited her along for tea back in first year. She became friends with Hagrid, and so when Buckbeak attacks Draco and is sentenced to execution, Hermione helps Hagrid with his appeal. She does research, she prepares his case, she fights for Buckbeak's life. But in this timeline, she's not really friends with Hagrid. They're acquaintances at best. She feels bad for him, sure, but she's not invested enough to spend hours helping him prepare to appeal for his hippogriff's life. After all, she has faith in the system. So if Buckbeak is innocent, the Ministry will pardon the hippogriff. And probably a little bit of Hermione, who doesn't have her friendship with Hagrid making her a little bit biased. She probably thinks that teaching 13-year-olds to ride hippogriffs might have been a bit reckless. The kind of thing Harry and Ron would like, but not her. So Buckbeak's appeal isn't well prepared. It's not as thorough. The execution date probably comes sooner. Probably even before Sirius has a chance to make his move on the castle, right? So Buckbeak is executed. Hagrid is heartbroken. And one potential avenue for saving Sirius later is gone. Meanwhile, Sirius is out there, living rough, trying to find a way to get to Wormtail, but without Crookshanks' help, without easy access to the castle, it's nearly impossible. So he probably abandons his plan, right? At least temporarily. He can't risk getting caught trying to break into Hogwarts when he's got no real way of getting to Peter Pettigrew. So he stays on the run, biding his time, waiting for a better opportunity. But the Dementors are still stationed at Hogwarts because Sirius is on the loose, right? The Ministry is convinced Sirius is going to try and kill Harry at some point. So with the Dementors there, Harry still struggles with them. He still hears his mother's last moments, still passes out on the Hogwarts Express. But with no confrontation in the Shrieking Shack at the end of the year, without the revelation about Peter Pettigrew, Sirius is never captured. The truth about who betrayed the Potters never comes out. Sirius remains a wanted fugitive. Peter Pettigrew remains disguised as Scabbers, sitting in Ron's pocket, biding his time. Oh, and one more thing, the firebolt situation, right? Hermione would absolutely still snitch on Harry about the firebolt. You see, in the original, she's worried it was sent by Sirius Black and that it might be cursed because, like everybody else, she thinks Sirius wants to kill Harry. So she reports it to McGonagall and gets it confiscated. Harry and Ron are furious with her for it, but they eventually make up because they are friends, and they understand she did it out of concern for Harry's safety. But here, they are not friends. They already think that she's an insufferable know-it-all who got them in trouble in first year by snitching on them. And now she's gotten Harry's incredible new broom confiscated. The best broom in the world, and he can't fly it. This is the final straw for Harry and Ron, right? They don't just dislike her anymore, they genuinely despise her. So Ron, who's already grieving his dead sister from the year before, by the way, he's already angry at the world, and here's Hermione. once again interfering, once again thinking she knows better than everyone else. And of course, without Sirius breaking in, on the cusp of the Dementor's kiss, and with Buckbeak long dead, there's no need for all that time-turner nonsense either. So the Quidditch World Cup happens largely the same way, right? Harry still goes with the Weasleys. Though the atmosphere is different now, you know, the Weasleys grieving Ginny still hangs over the whole family. Mrs. Weasley cries more easily. Mr. Weasley tries to keep up spirits, but there's like a hollowness to it. Ron's still got Scabbers. Well, Peter, but nobody knows that, right? The rat is just there in Ron's pocket watching everything. And when they get back to Hogwarts and Harry's name comes out of the Goblet of Fire, everything goes wrong immediately. Because in the original story, Ron thinks Harry put his name in for the glory, and they have this huge argument. It's Hermione sort of holds them together, brings them together when they're ready to reconcile. She stays friends with both of them. But here, there is no Hermione to play mediator. Ron is furious, right? His jealousy and his grief, they're all tangled up together. His sister is dead, his family is a bit broken, and now his best mate is getting more fame and attention when he didn't even need to enter the tournament. They have a blazing row, and without Hermione to eventually bring them back together, it lasts much longer, and it gets probably a bit more hurtful. Now, maybe they reconcile again after the first task, when Ron sees how dangerous the dragons are. He sees how ridiculous it would have been for Harry to put himself in those life-threatening positions. But the damage is done. Their friendship is a little bit fractured, which means Harry is pretty much alone going into the first task. And this is crucial, because in the original story, Hermione helps Harry practice loads of spells in preparation for the tournament. Most importantly, she helps him perfect the summoning charm, which is what he uses to call his firebolt and fly around the dragon in that first task. But without Hermione, Harry doesn't have anyone to practice with. He is isolated, the whole school thinks he's a cheat, including his best friend, Ron, who's not speaking to him. He's trying to learn spells from books, but that's just not the same as having someone to practice with. It's not like Sirius, who hides out in Hogsmeade in the original version to try and give him some sort of help and support. It's not like that's going to happen because nothing from the previous year was resolved. Harry doesn't know Sirius is actually a good person who cares about him. So Harry's alone, massively underprepared going into the first task, and he faces a dragon without a hope in hell, really. Like, he probably still has the idea to fly, it's his best skill after all, but without proper practice at the summoning charm, without Hermione drilling it into him over and over, it doesn't work as smoothly. Maybe he gets the broom, but his casting is weak, and it takes longer to arrive, and the dragon gets in a few good hits before he can mount it. Either way, Harry gets pretty messed up by the Hungarian Horntail. He survives because Barty Crouch Jr., disguised as Mad Eye, needs him to survive to win the tournament, but he's injured. Burns, broken bones, he places much lower, probably last place in the standings, and Barty Crouch Jr. is going to have to work overtime to get Harry to the graveyard by the end of the third task. But Barty Crouch Jr. is a very talented wizard, he will still manage it, he will give Harry hints, steer him in the right direction, maybe even hex his competitors when no one's looking. It will end up working out with Harry getting there, but before that we have the Yule Ball. And the dynamics here get quite interesting, because in the original there's this whole jealousy plot with Ron and Hermione, right? Ron is jealous that Hermione is going to the ball with Crumb. Meanwhile, Hermione is upset that Ron is being an idiot about it, and it's this mess of teenage feelings. But none of that happens here. Hermione and Crumb still get close. She's still in the library all the time, he still notices her. But there's no jealousy from Ron, because he doesn't care about what Hermione does. He actively dislikes her after all. Ron probably embarrasses himself by asking Fleur to the ball, as he does in the original, shooting a shot with the most beautiful girl in the school, and getting shot down spectacularly. He ends up going with Padma, just like in the original. But here's the thing, without being distracted by jealousy over Hermione, without spending the whole night sulking, Ron might actually have a good time with Padma. He's funny, he's tall by fourth year, he's kind of popular, he's best mates with Harry Potter again now, and Padma is smart and pretty and interesting. They might actually get along. You know, Ron makes her laugh, she thinks he's kind of sweet, if a little bit clueless. It could actually be the start of something. As for Hermione, even though she gets close to Crumb and spends some time with him in the library, I actually don't think she goes with him. Think about it, in this timeline, Hermione and Neville have something in common. They both stood up to Harry and Ron in the first year. They both get picked on quite a bit. They're both the uncool, unpopular outsiders in Gryffindor. I can see them getting quite close, bonding over their shared experiences, both being outsiders in Gryffindor, but in different ways. So I think Hermione and Neville go to the Yule Ball together. Two outcasts who have found friendship in each other. It's quite sweet, and after all, Ginny's dead, so Neville can't go with her. And then the second task happens. Harry still has to save someone from the lake, probably Ron, because, you know, he's still Harry's closest friend, even with their rocky arguments at the start of the year. But when Harry sees Ron tied up, he doesn't see Hermione next to him. He's not conflicted about saving multiple people, so he probably just takes Ron to the surface and wins the task. And then after that, maybe because he's still Harry Harry Potter who has to do everything right. Maybe he dives back down after saving Ron and tries to free up the others. But either way, by the time he's surfaced and saved Ron, he's still banked those points. And then the third task approaches. Barty Crouch Jr. has been working behind the scenes to make sure that Harry gets through each task, making sure he's in a position to reach the Triwizard Cup first, and he succeeds. Harry touches the cup, it's a portkey. He's transported to the graveyard in Little Hangleton. Now, in the original, Peter Pettigrew is there to perform the ritual and bring Voldemort back, but Wormtail is still disguised as Scabbers, sat in Ron's pocket. So I think Barty Crouch Jr. probably has to do it himself. You know, he's powerful enough, he's been disguised as Moody for an entire year, using Polyjuice Potion. He's clearly talented, so I think at that fateful moment, just before Harry's about to grab the portkey, Barty Crouch Jr., who's been surrounding the maze, one of the patrolling professors, he gets himself through the hedges, takes the portkey with Harry and Cedric. He says to them something like, "Congratulations, I'm here to award you with the cup, come and grab it with me." The three of them go to the graveyard, Cedric still dies, kill the spare, that moment of casual cruelty, except this time it's Barty Crouch Jr. who kills him, not Wormtail. And Voldemort still rises from the cauldron, still duels Harry. Harry still escapes with Cedric's body, brings back the news that Voldemort has returned. But in this situation, Barty Crouch Jr. remains with Voldemort, which means he's not given the Dementor's kiss at Hogwarts. And there's a link in the description to a video I made a while ago outlining everything that changes if he survives. I'm not going to go into much detail about that in this video because I'll be repeating myself, but if you're interested, there's a link down there. Largely, the fallout of this year, though, is the same once Harry returns screaming that Voldemort is back. So Voldemort is back, Harry is telling the truth, but the wizarding world thinks he's a liar. The Ministry is running a smear campaign against him and Dumbledore. It's all a nightmare for him, and Harry is feeling pretty alone. Now, in this version of events, we need to talk about Hermione's character arc, because it's about to get really dark. You see, Hermione has spent the last 4 years being staunchly anti-Harry and Ron. She's been vehemently pro-system, pro-authority, pro-following the rules. She puts enormous importance on doing what is expected of you. Studying hard, passing exams, trusting that the adults in charge know what they're doing. Sound familiar? She's basically Percy Weasley at this point. So when Dumbledore sides with Harry and says Voldemort is back, but the Ministry gets involved and starts interfering with Hogwarts, I think Hermione might, at least in part, agree with Umbridge. Now, I'm not saying Hermione's evil, because she's not, right? She means well, but she has had 4 years of character development in completely the opposite direction from the original books. See, in the original, Harry and Ron's friendship pushed her to question authority, to break rules when necessary, to understand that sometimes the system is wrong and you have to stand up to it. But in this version, she never learned those lessons. She watched Harry and Ron break rule after rule in first year and nearly die. She had the information to save Ginny in second year, but because she couldn't get it into the hands of authority figures quickly enough, meaning McGonagall, Ginny died. And she's internalized that following the rules and trusting authority is the right thing to do. So when Umbridge shows up with her proper teaching methods, her focus on theory and exams, her emphasis on order and structure, Hermione probably doesn't see the problem at first. Because additionally, in the first few books, she, alongside Harry, sees a side of Dumbledore that earns him her trust, that allows her to put her faith in him. But without her closeness to Harry and Ron, and with Harry and Ron not having her help and largely being useless so that Dumbledore doesn't even really interact with them, you know, no big debrief at the end of the Philosopher's Stone or the end of the Chamber of Secrets, no time turner moment at the end of the Prisoner of Azkaban, Hermione has no reason to believe Dumbledore blindly, especially when she then sees him siding with Harry, someone she knows to be reckless, and kind of anti the authority that she believes in so much. She might actually start to believe the propaganda that Dumbledore is using this to usurp the government. So Umbridge arrives, right? And she's a bit strict, a bit old-fashioned, but she represents the Ministry, and the Ministry is the legitimate government of the wizarding world, right? So they must know what they're doing. Obviously, Hermione doesn't know that Umbridge is torturing students with blood quills. Nobody does at first because Harry keeps it a secret. But by the time that comes out, Hermione is already committed to a certain path. And so, here's the big one. Hermione never starts the DA in protest against Umbridge alongside Harry and Ron. Because in the original, it's Hermione's idea, right? She has to convince Harry to teach everyone because she recognizes they need practical defensive training. She organizes it, she sets it all up, she makes the coins for communication about where and when they're going to meet. But that's not happening here. Hermione is not friends with Harry. She is not going to ask him to lead an illegal student organization that directly violates Ministry decrees. And even if somebody else had the idea, Harry couldn't teach them anyway, because He only knew all these spells that he could teach everyone, apart from maybe the Patronus, because in the original story, Hermione helped him learn them by helping him train for the Triwizard Tournament. That never happened in this timeline. So there's no DA, there's no practical defense training, no secret student army preparing to fight Death Eaters. There's also no Rita Skeeter revenge plot, because in the original, Hermione captures Rita in her Animagus Beetle form as payback for what she wrote about Harry the previous year. She then blackmails Rita to write an article from Harry's perspective and Harry's side of things for the Quibbler, which helps turn public opinion back in his favour. None of that happens here. Hermione is not friends with Harry, so she doesn't care about getting revenge on Rita. She doesn't care about clearing his name, so the interview never happens. Public opinion stays firmly against Harry. There is one bright spot for Harry, though. His relationship with Cho Chang actually lasts a little bit longer. In the original, their date on Valentine's Day is this awkward, strange, uncomfortable date. Cho is grieving Cedric, she is emotional, and then Harry says he has to leave to meet Hermione for the Rita Skeeter interview. That makes Cho jealous and upset, and it all kind of falls apart from there. But here, there is no meeting with Hermione, no interview to rush off to, so Harry and Cho actually have time to talk, to process their shared grief of Cedric, to maybe build something a bit more real. They probably date for a few more months. It might even be good for both of them, right? And so this new social group is forming around Harry. Ginny's dead, so she's not in the picture. Luna only really became part of the group through the DA and through an association via Ginny, so Luna's not around either. Hermione and Neville aren't friends with Harry and Ron. In fact, they're actively opposed to them. So instead you've got Harry dating Cho Chang, Ron dating Padma Patil. Padma's sister, Parvati, is obviously around, and Parvati is best friends with Lavender Brown, who later fancies Ron in the original timeline. So I think this is the new crew. They're not as talented as the DA would have been. None of them are Hermione level of brilliant or intelligent, or Neville level of determined and loyal. But you know, they are good people, they are loyal, they're Harry's friends. They're just not really prepared for what's coming. Now here's where things get really uncomfortable, right? Hermione, and I think maybe Neville, after so much of Hermione's influence, they are both good people with good intentions, but I think they might join the Inquisitorial squad. I know that sounds awful, but hear me out, okay? They don't know that Umbridge is torturing students. They genuinely believe they are helping to maintain order and safety in the school. They stand up against rule breakers as they did in the first year against Harry and Ron. They want to maintain order and safety. They are prefects, they are model students, and they think working with the Ministry is the right thing to do. It's basically the same logic that led Percy to side with the Ministry over his family, right? Trust the institution, trust the system. Don't believe the conspiracy theories about you-know-who returning. They're wrong, obviously, but they just don't know that yet. Then comes Voldemort's trap. Now, in the original, Voldemort plants a vision in Harry's mind of Sirius being tortured in the Department of Mysteries. Harry is desperate to save his godfather, he rushes to the Ministry with the DA, and a chaotic battle ensues which leads to Sirius's death. But Sirius is still on the run in this timeline. He has no relationship with Harry, so the vision can't be about Sirius. So instead, I think Voldemort shows Harry a vision of Arthur Weasley being tortured. Arthur is the closest thing Harry has to a father figure outside of Hogwarts, and Ron has already lost Ginny. The thought of losing his dad would be unbearable. So Harry sees this vision, and he's frantic. He needs to save Arthur. He needs to do something. And Ron is insistent that they are going to go. He's just lost his little sister a couple of years ago. He's not losing his dad as well. He doesn't care if it's a trap. He's going anyway. So Harry tells his new group of friends what's happening. And here's the thing. Cho, Lavender, Parvati, Padma, they are good people. We know this because they fight in the Battle of Hogwarts in the original version. So when they're given the choice to leave, they mean well. They're brave. They join Harry and Ron. They head to the Department of Mysteries. They go to save Ron's dad. But here's the problem. They're not in the DA. There hasn't been a DA. There's been no training all year. They haven't practiced defensive spells and combat tactics. Harry is far less qualified than he is in the original version. So they're just a group of teenagers who are brave, but completely unprepared, and have not done any defense against the dark arts all year. So they get to the Department of Mysteries, they find the Hall of Prophecy, and the trap is sprung. Death Eaters are everywhere. Bellatrix, Lucius Malfoy, Dolohov, Barty Crouch Jr. is probably there, and they are not messing around. This group of unprepared teenagers against experienced Death Eaters, it's not a fight, it is a slaughter. In the original, the DA holds their own for a little while, right? They are outmatched by the Death Eaters, definitely, but they are skilled enough to defend themselves, to keep moving, to stay alive until help comes. Here, they are completely outmatched from the start. So I think Ron dies. There was an original plan for the Harry Potter series in which Ron was supposed to die at some point anyway, so this kind of makes sense. He's trying to protect Harry, trying to save his dad, even though his dad was never there in the first place, and he goes down fighting. Lavender probably dies too. The twins, Padma and Parvati, probably injured. This is a bloodbath, right? The only reason that Harry survives is because they need him alive. Voldemort wants the prophecy, and only Harry can retrieve it. But then Dumbledore and the Order arrive just in time to save Harry and whoever is left. They drive off the Death Eaters, they secure the prophecy, or it gets destroyed like it does in the original, but the cost is horrific, right? Multiple dead teenagers, Harry's closest friend is gone. Fifth year ends not with a triumph, but with funerals. So sixth year begins, and Dumbledore knows he has a serious problem. Not a serious black problem, like a very real problem. Harry Potter, the boy who's supposed to defeat Voldemort, the subject of the prophecy, the wizarding world's only hope, has an absolutely abysmal track record. Let's review, right? Failed to save the Philosopher's Stone in his first year, failed to save Ginny Weasley in his second year, failed to save Buckbeak in his third year, barely scraped through the Triwizard Tournament in his fourth year, and in his fifth year, he led 4 of his peers into a trap and got them killed. Or at least some of them. Ron Weasley is dead, Lavender Brown is dead, Ginny Weasley is dead, Harry has got no friends left. The people who survived that disaster at the Ministry can barely look at him. Ron's family is destroyed, they've now lost 2 children. Harry is isolated, he's racked with guilt, and he's entirely incapable of fighting the fight that's coming. Oh, and on top of all of that, Dumbledore is dying, right? The curse from the Gaunt Ring is slowly killing him, and he has got maybe a year left. So Dumbledore has to change tactics. He cannot leave Harry to figure things out on his own anymore. That approach has led to nothing but failure and death. He needs to train Harry properly, personally, and so the lessons about Voldemort's past still happen because Harry needs to understand Horcruxes, needs to understand how Tom Riddle became Voldemort. But Dumbledore goes further in those lessons this time. He actually teaches Harry combat magic, defensive spells, offensive spells, how to duel properly. The kind of training that Harry needs to get him to the point where he actually might not fail for once. And so I think Dumbledore needs help. He recruits Snape to help him because Snape is Dumbledore's number 2 in everything related to Voldemort, right? Snape is the one that Dumbledore tells about Harry having to die eventually. Snape is the one who knew about the prophecy, about Nagini, about all of it. And Snape is the one that Dumbledore trusts to kill him when the time comes. So when Dumbledore is away from the castle, which happens frequently because he's hunting Horcruxes, Snape trains Harry. And this is deeply uncomfortable for both of them, right? Because Snape still hates Harry. He still sees James Potter every time he looks at him. And Harry still thinks Snape is a greasy git who makes his life miserable. But Dumbledore's orders are clear, and Snape's loyal to Dumbledore above all else. So he teaches Harry properly. No holding back. And Harry throws himself into these lessons. He gives them everything he has got. Because frankly, what else does he have? His friends are dead. He has no family. The one thing he was good at, teaching the DA, that never happened in this timeline. Besides Quidditch, he's got nothing. His entire life has become this mission with Dumbledore, this preparation for a war he now knows is coming. And Dumbledore lets him, encourages it even, because Dumbledore knows what Harry doesn't yet, that Harry is going to have to die to defeat Voldemort. He knows the boy needs to feel like he has something to fight for, needs to believe he's becoming strong enough to make a difference. So Dumbledore mentors him more closely than he ever did in the original timeline. He gives Harry purpose, gives him focus, gives him something to pour all of his grief and guilt into. Meanwhile, Harry is still excelling in potions thanks to the Half-Blood Prince's textbook, and Hermione, who still is not his friend, is even more annoyed about it than she was in the original. She catches glimpses of the modified instructions in his book. She sees him succeeding where he shouldn't be, and being Hermione, who follows rules and believes in doing things properly, she reports him. And McGonagall or Slughorn probably confiscate the book. But Harry still needs Slughorn's memory about the Horcruxes. That is crucial to Dumbledore's plan. So Harry uses his vial of Felix Felicis, gets the memory through sheer liquid luck, and maybe even manages to get the textbook back in the confusion ensuing. Then there's Draco Malfoy and his secret mission from Voldemort. Because in the original, Harry becomes obsessed with figuring out what Draco's up to. He uses the Marauder's map to track him, his every movement. He summons Kreacher to try and tail Draco all around the castle to figure out what he's doing. And the house elf eventually traces Draco to the Room of Requirement. Here, Harry can't summon Kreacher because Kreacher isn't his house elf. Sirius never died, so Harry never inherited him. So Harry's got suspicions of Draco, he always does, but he can't investigate properly, much like in his second year. He can't prove or disprove anything. He just knows that something is wrong. He just can't pin it down. So Draco is able to work in relative secrecy, fixing the Vanishing Cabinet, getting closer to completing his mission. And eventually the time comes for Harry and Dumbledore to hunt their next Horcrux. They go to the cave, they get the locket, all the same as the original. But when they return to Hogwarts to find the dark mark over the castle, things are different. Because in the original, Harry gave his remaining Felix Felicis to the DA before he left. To Ron, to Hermione, to Neville, to Ginny, to Luna. They all took it and used that luck to defend the castle when the Death Eaters invaded. But there's no DA in this timeline. So when Draco finally succeeds in getting the Death Eaters into Hogwarts through the Vanishing Cabinet, there's no enhanced defense. No group of well-trained and loyal students, and no liquid luck to give them an edge. The battle is bloodier, more people die, more students are injured, maybe Bill Weasley still gets mauled by Fenrir Greyback, but maybe others die too. Teachers, students, Order members, and then the moment comes. Dumbledore and Harry on the astronomy tower, Draco shows up, wand raised, unable to go through with killing Dumbledore, but Snape arrives. And just like in the original, he kills Dumbledore, as they'd planned all along. But it hits Harry so much harder this time, because Harry spent the entire year training with Dumbledore and Snape. He's seen how much Dumbledore trusts Snape, and how Dumbledore relied on him for everything. Those private lessons, those long conversations about Voldemort. Snape was part of it all, and now Snape has murdered him. The betrayal this time is even more personal, even more devastating for Harry, because in this timeline, Harry's actually seen the depth of their partnership up close. He's seen how much Snape respected Dumbledore, and so that betrayal feels heavier. Dumbledore dies, and Snape flees, and the castle is in chaos, and Harry is left alone again, with nothing but a mission he barely understands, and a growing certainty that he's not strong enough to complete it. So Harry leaves Hogwarts to hunt Horcruxes. Alone. Well, not quite alone, because he doesn't have Hermione and Ron's dead, but Dumbledore isn't stupid. He knows that Harry can't do this by himself. Harry has proven time and time again, over 6 years, he needs help. A lot of it. He fails when he's on his own. So I think Dumbledore has put plans in place before he died, contingencies, if you will, instructions for the Order about what to do after he's gone. And I think those instructions probably involve Tonks and Remus Lupin going with Harry on the Horcrux hunt. Because think about it. Harry knows them, and he trusts them. They're Order members, they're powerful, they're competent. Tonks has been around since Harry's 5th year. Remus was his defense against the Dark Arts teacher in his 3rd year, one of the few adults that Harry genuinely connected with. And without Harry having a relationship with Sirius, Remus probably filled that void with him a little bit more over the years. And crucially, Dumbledore knows Harry needs capable help. Not teenagers who are learning as they go, but experienced, talented wizards who can actually pull this off. So in this timeline, I think Tonks probably doesn't get pregnant. She and Remus know they have this mission ahead of them, this crucial task that could determine the fate of the war, so they put off starting a family. It's a sacrifice, but one they are willing to make. So the three of them set off together. Harry, Tonks, Remus, hunting Horcruxes. And honestly, I think it maybe goes better than it would in the original timeline. Because Tonks is an Auror, a really good one. She's got training, she's got skills, she's got knowledge of how the Ministry works. So when they need to infiltrate the Ministry to get the locket from Umbridge, she knows the layout. She knows the procedures, how to get in and get out. It's still dangerous, but it's not 3 teenagers bumbling around hoping they don't get caught. It is a trained Auror leading a planned infiltration. And Remus Lupin is widely considered the Hermione of the Marauders, right? The smart one, the strategic one, the logical one. He's clearly very capable, very knowledgeable about magic. And Harry has been trained by Dumbledore himself by this point, and Snape, who's very capable. So between Tonks' practical Auror skills and Remus's magical knowledge and a much better equipped Harry, they are starting on a better footing for this Horcrux hunt than the 3 17-year-olds of the original timeline ever were. And if Dumbledore had to brief Remus and Tonks that they had to do this, they might have been in a position to ask a bit more for hints and direction and advice about where to start and what to do. And regardless of whether they have that extra information from Dumbledore, they're older than Ron and Hermione. They're more experienced, they're better at magic, they can handle themselves in a fight. They know spells that Harry's probably never even heard of. Now, obviously, there's Lupin's monthly full moon issue to contend with. It's not like Snape is sending them Wolfsbane potion at this point. But Remus has been a werewolf for decades by this point, so I'm sure they'll manage. Whether he, leaves for a couple of days every month just to be sure and then returns after his transformation, I think that probably makes sense. Anyway, the Horcrux hunt actually progresses. Harry, Remus, and Tonks manage to find them and destroy them one by one. What with Tonks' Auror history giving her a knowledge of dark magic, and Remus's experience letting him know the wider wizarding world, they move forward with a plan. Instead of just camping in the woods for months hoping something comes to them, they're more strategic. Now, they'd still have to deal with the way the Horcruxes corrupt people, the way they prey on people's insecurities and amplify their worst thoughts. And Remus has plenty of insecurities to work with. I have a whole video talking about how Remus's issues make him a selfish, self-serving coward. Link in the description for that one. I think the Horcruxes would dig into all of that and maybe push him over the edge. Maybe he storms out before they get to Godric's Hollow, convinced he's a burden, convinced they'd be better off without him, spiraling into all his worst thoughts about being a werewolf and being a monster. Maybe he's the Ron in this situation, but he comes back, just like Ron did in the original. And when Remus returns, I think there's one more person who comes with him, Sirius Black. Because in this timeline, with Ron dead, I think Peter would try to return to Voldemort. After Dumbledore's death, Voldemort seems like he's going to win. The Ministry has now fallen, and Wormtail wants to be on the winning side. So where Ron stormed out to spend Christmas at Shell Cottage, I think Remus leaves to protect Harry and Tonks from himself and his wolfish tendencies. And when he leaves, he finds himself reunited with Sirius, and they get to Peter. And Sirius convinces Remus of his innocence, just like he does in the original Prisoner of Azkaban. Perhaps Remus has seen the Marauders' map, Harry keeping an eye on Cho or the few people he cares about still at Hogwarts. Remus gets a glimpse, and with Hogwarts basically under Snape and Voldemort's control, maybe that's where Scabbers flees to. And so Remus sees the name Peter Pettigrew, and so when he comes across Sirius, he believes him. And so when Remus finally returns to Harry and Tonks, he returns with Sirius. And Sirius, finally free, or at least vindicated, would absolutely want to help Harry. You know, this is James's son. Sirius couldn't protect James, but he can protect Harry. Plus, Sirius would know things. He'd know about the Black family, about Grimmauld Place, about Regulus Arcturus Black, R.A.B. He'd be able to help them find the real locket, to understand Creature's story, to piece together what Regulus did. See, in the original timeline, Sirius died not knowing what Regulus had done, that Regulus was really trying to help defeat Voldemort after all. They'd come around to the right side. So it'd be great to see a moment where Sirius realizes that in this version. So it's the four of them, Harry, Remus, Tonks, and Sirius, a proper team of capable wizards hunting Horcruxes. And with their combined knowledge and skills, they succeed, one by one. They find them, they destroy them, the locket from the Ministry, the cup from Gringotts. Difficult, but manageable. And eventually they realize they need to get back to Hogwarts for the final confrontation. Voldemort's going to come for Harry there, and they all know it. And so when they arrive at Hogwarts, something important has happened. Hermione and Neville have seen the light, at last. Like Percy Weasley does in the original story, they realized they put their faith in the wrong system. They trusted authority, believed the Ministry knew best, thought that following the rules was always the right thing to do, and then they saw Snape's Hogwarts, with the Carrows. Maybe Barty Crouch Jr. is working there as well. They see them torturing first years in the name of punishment, children being brutalized in the name of education, and even Hermione's faith in the system can't survive that. She realizes she was wrong. And she and Neville start the rebellion at Hogwarts. The same rebellion that Neville and Luna and Ginny led in the original. They resist the Carrows, they protect younger students. Maybe Luna's involved too, maybe Cho Chang is involved, though she's a year older, so she should have graduated by now, so who knows. But the point is, when Harry, Remus, Tonks, and Sirius arrive at Hogwarts to face Voldemort, Hermione and Neville are there. And Hermione, brilliant, capable Hermione, who's finally fighting for the right side, she approaches Harry. And there's so much for them to say. So many years of animosity and mistakes and deaths that could have been prevented, but there's no time for long reconciliations. She just tells him they're with him, whatever he needs, they will help, they are ready to fight. And Harry, who's been without real friends for so long now, just nods, because that's all that needs to be said. The final battle plays out largely the same as in the original. Voldemort and his Death Eaters attack Hogwarts. The Defenders, students, teachers, Order members, they fight back. Snape is killed by Voldemort for the Elder Wand. Harry sees the memories, learns the truth about Snape's loyalty, about his love for Lily. And I guess it hits a bit harder this time, because Harry spent his 6th year training with Snape, seeing behind that cruel exterior a little bit, that complicated, damaged man underneath. And Harry also learns the final truth, right? He is a Horcrux. He has to die for Voldemort to be defeated. So he walks into the Forbidden Forest, he uses the Resurrection Stone, he sees his parents, he sees Ron, he sees Dumbledore. Then Voldemort casts the Killing Curse, Harry dies. But of course, it doesn't take. The protection that Lily's sacrifice gave him is still present, because Voldemort used Harry's blood to resurrect himself. And it all works out the same way. He returns, Neville kills Nagini. Maybe it's not Neville in this scenario, maybe it's Sirius or Remus or anybody else. And Voldemort is defeated. The Elder Wand refuses to kill its true master. Voldemort's curse backfires. The war is over. Voldemort is dead. And in the aftermath, I think Harry and Hermione finally have that long conversation about everything. About all the years of animosity, all the chances they missed, all the deaths that might have been prevented if they had just been friends from the start. And then they kiss. Joking. They don't kiss. That would be a really weird thing to happen here. But I do think their friendship could start here as the wizarding world rebuilds. And if you want to hear another what-if scenario, also kind of centering about Hermione, in this video I explore what would happen in Harry Potter if Hermione was a complete idiot. And I make a lot of puns about how stupid she is. You can check that video out here next.